Anyways, let's move on to the seventh round. Once again, we have another player we both agree on. Robbie, why don't you take this one? It is Juju Smith-Schuster. I do not want to be accused of being a homer, and so go ahead and talk wax poetically on Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, man. I put because I thought you were going to go first. I just said I agree with everything you say. That's all I have for notes. So if I'm going first, I just think there's a lot of vacated targets, and I get the whole targets is earned process. So it can kind of go hand in hand here, where there is a lot of vacated targets that are going to go to somebody. And I think Juju is the most complete wide receiver of the group that's currently in Kansas City. We have Sky Moore, who's a rookie, who's not quite ready to step up quite yet, making this leap. We have MVS, who's kind of this down the field threat, not a complete wide receiver. And we have Miko Hardeman, who really hasn't shown that he can get it done quite yet. So I think someone's going to have to be this 1A for Patrick Mahomes, one of the best quarterbacks, if not the best in the NFL. Right? We've already talked about when I was talking about Russ Wilson, how he has one of the highest touchdown percentage rates. Someone's going to score for this team outside of Travis Kelce, and I think it's going to be Juju. Man, we've seen him be an elite fantasy option before. It's been a while now, but I think he's finally in that right system where he's not just this dink and dunk guy that we saw with Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. I think this is a guy that can be really, really dynamic again. Super excited about Juju.
Yeah, I mean, be able to get Patrick Mahomes, likely number one wide receiver here in the seventh round, feels like you're stealing.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
really, outside of the only player that's going ahead of Patrick Mahomes is Travis Kelce. Everybody else, all the rest of his pass catchers are going well past Patrick Mahomes in ADP. So one of these guys is definitely gonna emerge. I think the most logical is Juju Smith-Schuster. He has crushed camp, and somebody the Chiefs really wanted. They actually wanted him last year, but he decided to go back to Pittsburgh, and I think it's going to do him well. This is only a 1 year deal as well for him, so he's going to have to early earn this. And I do think it's going to take Sky Moore a little bit of time, and Mecole Hardman's going to mix in. He'll get some opportunities, and MVS is still MVS, still has trouble dropping the ball, but Juju Smith-Schuster is going to see a ton of targets. So I have Brandon Ayuk right now. He's going wide receiver 38 or 94th overall. With Brandon Ayuk last year, I mean, there was a lot of hype surrounding him entering last, especially because how he finished the 2020 season was red hot. And then last year, Kyle Shanahan, I guess he was in his doghouse and just like he didn't want to play the guy. It was a very weird situation. Not a lot of people were expecting what happened to transpire, but it happened. He averaged 10 fantasy points per game last year. He had an 18% target share. He was 38th in routes run. 56 receptions, 826 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was also 8th in yards after the catch per reception. He was 9th in target separation. But where we should be looking at is from weeks 9 through 18, kind of once he got out of that doghouse. He averaged 13.4 fantasy points per game or wide receiver 15 over that span. He also out-targeted Deebo Samuel 61 to 49 targets in this offense. And so while yes, there is some concern with Trey Lance and how much of a passing offense is this going to be with Trey Lance, but I think there's the other side of it. If Trey Lance can really hit the ground running and be a much more better passer, I think there is definitely an upside for Brandon Ayuk. He's going significantly later than Deebo Samuel is. Deebo Samuel is going like the second or third round or something like that of your drafts, where you can get Brandon Ayuk all the way back in the 8th round, and he is just as dynamic as Deebo Samuel. And to me, like it's very similar to that situation it was last year, because last year it was all the hype was all around Brandon Ayuk. Nobody was talking about Deebo Samuel. Most either a late wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 last year. People kind of had forgotten about him, and now we're seeing the same thing transpire with Brandon Ayuk. Nobody's talking about Brandon Ayuk. He is crushing camp. There's no more of the he's in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse stuff. And so I actually think that he could end up being a very, very solid value. Somebody that can give you kind of wide receiver 3 type.
Yeah, man, a lot of talk about Lance to Ayuk. It honestly should be concerning. I know you and I are already lower than consensus on Debo, a lot lower. And I think that people should be even more concerned with what we've seen in training camp and the preseason, man. There's just a really good connection with Lance to Ayuk. I don't know if it's hot take saying that they could be pretty on par with the Lance to Debo, but we won't get into that too far. Rashad Bateman is going to be the guy that I bring to the table. Kind of similar, right? Two teams that run a lot. They're going to have targeted hogs, right, with their tight end. And then I think Bateman's kind of that only other guy right now for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson is not throwing to his running backs. Devin Duvernay, James Prochet, Tylan Wallace, those are no guys that are scaring me in terms of taking away targets from Bateman. So I think the big question mark is just how much do they throw? Last year they threw a ton, but that was without J.K. Dobbins, without Gus Edwards, without basically their top 3 or 4 running backs as they all got hurt. So do they reel it back a little bit and try and get more run focused as they have been in the past? Probably, but what we can't forget is that Lamar Jackson's efficiency was so bad last year because everybody knew that they had to throw all the time. So if we can get closer to 2019 Lamar Jackson, 2020 Lamar Jackson in his terms of passing efficiency and passing touchdown efficiency, I think we're going to be just fine with supporting both Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman in this offense. So he's a shot that I want to take because he's a super complete wide receiver. You're not worried about him just being a one-trick pony. He can kind of do it all. So Rashad Bateman in the 8th is a guy I am looking at.
Yeah, so let's move over to the 9th round. We're starting to get in now to like we're looking more just taking those home run swings, and that's all we really care about at this point. When you start filling out this part of your draft, I have Ramondre Stevenson. He was very good last year. Obviously, he was splitting touches last year between Damian Harris. I think now you have Damian Harris entering his final year of his deal. You have James White, who is gone. Brandon Bolden is gone from this backfield. Yes, they drafted Pierre Strong, who's a player that we liked around here during draft season, but who knows how much he's going to factor in. But there's been a lot of reports this offseason about them switching to more of a zone scheme, which would be much more beneficiary to Ramondre Stevenson. He's a much better fit for a zone, outside zone scheme than what Damian Harris is. And I think he could also be handling a lot more of the pass catching work as well. Damian Harris, that's not really his strong suit. And so Ramondre Stevenson, and there's such a big gap between Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson, it doesn't make any sense. Like Damian Harris is being drafted in the 60s, where Ramondre Stevenson is being drafted in the late 90s, early 100s overall. Like there's almost a 3 or 4 round difference between the two of them, and there shouldn't be at all. Like I'm out. No, there's no shot in hell that I'm drafting Damian Harris anywhere. I don't care at all in the 6th, 7th, 8th round. Like no thanks. Just take Ramondre Stevenson.
My guy in the 9th, it's really a similar situation to Juju in the Chiefs. Is the Packers got to throw to somebody, and that guy's probably going to be Allen Lazard as their 1A. And you can get him a couple rounds later than you can get Juju. So this is another fantastic value where he had 8 touchdowns and just 60 targets last year. Just 60 targets, 8 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers has come out and said he's going to be the number 1 guy. He's going to need to step up and replace Davante Adams. So he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. We know there's other names that are there in Green Bay: Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, Romeo Doubs. There's just nobody that's like really scared me and saying, hey, they can really shut down Allen Lazard. I know he needs to step up and prove that he can be that 1A, which is why you're getting him in the 9th round. But man, somebody's catching touchdowns, somebody's catching passes. And if he's already done it and caught 8 touchdowns on just 60 targets, and he's kind of that 1A that gets the first crack at it, there's no reason why you shouldn't be taking this upside shot in the Packers offense, catching passes from Aaron Rodgers.
Let's go to the 10th round, and I have James Cook. And he is somebody that at first I kind of was pushing back on because when he was first drafted by the Bills, there was a ton of hype, like a massive amount. Like, oh man, this guy's going to be fantastic. He can be the best running back in this class and all this stuff, right? And I'm like, whoa, let's settle down. But now we're here and we have his ADP in 10th round. I have no problem taking and going with him here because one, we're in the later rounds here. He is a terrific pass catcher out of the backfield. This is attached to one of the best offenses in the league, super explosive. And, Devin Singletary, while he had a great, really bounce back second half of last season, where he probably won some leagues last year of how good he was, I think he, at best, he's probably looking at an early down role where for Devin Singletary, where he handles like the first and second down work. And then you have James Cook, who's going to be the third down guy. I think they get creative with him and move him all over the formation, use him out of the slot, use him on the outside. I think they can do a lot of different things with James Cook. James Cook is big enough to grow into a feature down back. He's still 5'11". It's not like he's this little tiny guy, but he did check in at 199. It's a little bit small in terms of what you want in a lead back. But overall, I wouldn't be surprised if by the second half of the season that James Cook could actually take over this backfield. Definitely in the range of possibilities. Devin Singletary, while has been admirable and has done a decent job, is certainly not somebody that can't be replaced in this backfield. So James Cook is somebody that I definitely loved getting my hands on.
Yeah, and for me in the 10th, we're getting a lot of rookie wide receiver hype from George Pickens, from Drake London, and Treylon Burks, mixed reviews, but he's a name that's going above Chris Olave. But he's been my ride or die. Chris Olave has been since before the draft process started. Love this guy as a prospect, and now he lands in the Saints. And we've seen Michael Thomas come back, and that's kind of stunted his rise in ADP. We've seen them sign Jarvis Landry, but Michael Thomas is already injured again. He had a hamstring injury recently, and Jarvis Landry, I'm not really worried about him. I think there's a legitimate case where Chris Olave is the leading target getter out of these receivers come season's end because James Winston's back and practicing. I really, really am excited to see what he can do now that he's kind of taking control of this offense. He was fantastic in the 7 games before he got injured last year. And so if we look at it, just a talented rookie that's just really polished, when we talk about rookies and wide receivers and can they take off and be productive right away, it's these really polished route runners that have speed and good dynamic to them. And I think that's Chris Olave, where he's able to get down the field. He's able to run any type of route you ask him to do. And so this is a guy that I'm excited about in the 10th round. Give me Chris Olave.
I have nothing else to add. I concur. I am full did a full 180. I went from not on Chris Olave to completely on the Chris Olave bandwagon. He's just in the best spot of any rookie wide receiver. So I love Chris Olave, especially where he's going. So let's go to the 11th round. I have Damian Pierce. And he is just somebody that has started to really rise up draft board. Somebody that, we kind of talked about early on in the process that he very well could take over this backfield. And he looks like he has certainly done that. Really wasn't hard. I mean, you have Rex Burkhead there, Marlon Mack. So, but I mean, he has looked really good in preseason. And listen, but we still have to remember this still is the Texans offense. There's probably got to be a lot of touchdowns scored, but if you can get him in the 11th round, it's totally fine because you're not expecting him to come in and be like your RB2, right? This is a flex option, somebody you can plug in as a flex option on week to week, play matchups with him. If you look at his profile, he doesn't have a lot of production, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot. We've seen plenty of players come out of college who didn't really get the opportunities they should have. Alvin Kamara being one of them. Not saying he's Alvin Kamara because he's damn sure nowhere close to the same type of player, but the point still stands that just because he never had over 600 yards rushing in any year of his career at Florida does not mean anything. He did have 16 total touchdowns last year in 2021. He smashed the Senior Bowl, and he just continued to go through this process and really started to really rise and rise. So I love Damian Pierce where you can get him. He very well could be the starting running back for this team by week.
Yeah, that's a name. And then the other one for me is Nyheim Hines. Still kind of quiet on that front. I'm surprised he hasn't jumped up more. There's been a lot of beat reporters that say that he's going to be a lot more involved. So look back to 2020, Nyheim Hines, when he had Phillip Rivers and he was targeted just an awful lot, 76 targets that season. I think Matt Ryan kind of fits into that similar mold where he will throw to his backs. A guy that comes to mind is Devontae Freeman, where he got a lot of targets during his run with the Falcons. And so, yeah, this is a guy that I'm excited about all the way back here in the 11th. Obviously, they have Jonathan Taylor, but it sounds like with no true wide receiver 2, they've got Alec Pierce, they've got Paris Campbell, but no guy that really steps up and says, "Hey, I'm going to be the number 2." It could be Nyheim Hines jumping in there and getting 80-ish targets and just being really, really good PPR floor if you're looking for a guy in the 11th round.
Yeah, and let's wrap this thing up here and go to the 12th round, the last round of the guys we're going to do. I paid to be. I really wanted to do Tyler Boyd, but he's going in the 11th round. I just can't get to him because Tyler Boyd is it's ridiculous how late he's going. Like wide receiver 50. It absolutely makes no sense for a guy that last year finished as wide receiver 3, and nothing has changed in this offense outside of they're probably going to throw the ball even more. So, anyways, Jakobi Meyers. Speaking of disrespected, the guy who is definitely the Patriots wide receiver 1. Yes, I get it's not a sexy offense. It's not an exciting offense. It's not going to be the super explosive offense. But he's still a player. Wide receiver 53, 141st overall is disrespectful. He had 130 targets last year, 24% target share. He is their slot wide receiver here. He has a great rapport with Mac Jones, 83 catches last year, 867 receiving yards. The one thing that hurt him was the touchdown department. He only scored 2 touchdowns last year. With this type of target share, he's going to see more opportunities there. I think that number corrects itself. Yeah, even it's not going to be some monster, but I still think he could get 6-7 touchdowns this year. 11 fantasy points per game last year. He was still a top 36 wide receiver for a player who finished the top 36, but now going 53. Makes 0 sense. He's led this team in target each of the last 2 years. He was 6th in total route wins last year, 2nd in route wins versus man coverage last year. So love Jakobi Meyers. He's absolutely free going in the 12th round. Take shots on him all day because he's going to be a guy you're going to be able to plug into your flex, and you're going to be really happy with the results.
And for me to round this out, it's going to be the new Kenny G. Kenny Gainwell is going to be my guy that I must have in the 12th because let's face it, Nick Sirianni wants to use a lot of different backs, and I want the back that's probably going to be the pass-catching back in that offense. We saw him take strides with Miles Sanders being out a little bit last year. Obviously, they're going to mix in some Boston Scott. But this is a guy that I would not be surprised if he's the starting running back over Miles Sanders. I know that's kind of on the hot take side, but they just have not been showing that they love Miles Sanders as their their guy, right? And so if you told me Kenny Gainwell was working in more with the ones as he has been in training camp and in the preseason, that just doesn't surprise me at all. So I'm excited to see what this guy can do. A third round pick coming out of Memphis and an excellent pass catcher. So Kenny Gainwell is going to be the guy for me in the 12th round that I'm not leaving drafts without.
All right, and that'll wrap up our must draft players through rounds 1 through 12. Be sure to let us know in the comment section below who are some of your must draft players right now. Who did we miss? Who did you agree with? Who do you disagree with? Let us know in the comment section below. Like I said, we're trying to win championships around here. Be sure to lock it in here to all of our live streams we're going to be doing every Wednesday night through the rest of the year. You can expect us to be live. You expect us to be live. We're going to answer all of your questions. We will stay on for 2-3 hours if we have to answer every single question. We get really good interaction and those. Be sure to jump into our Discord, absolutely free to join. Link in the description below. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.